Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you guys joining me on this Tuesday. It is April 14th, the day before tax day. Good to see all of you guys joining me. Welcome to all of you who are joining me on Kick, Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube. Good to have you guys. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and do me a solid and go ahead and give a like to the stream. As we get into the stories that we have today, we are going to be here to encourage, inspire, as well as activate. And there is a lot going on in the world today. So we'll be getting into that very soon. Also, if you guys would like to subscribe to my Substack, this gives you email notifications whenever I go live, write any articles or upload any clips, just like you guys got today. So you guys have that available as well. Also, if you guys have any questions you want to ask me, and then I answer either through video or I respond to a video that you guys would like me to respond to, you can do that through QBounty at qbounty.com/Jaybefaunt. All right, everybody. So it is a great day to be alive. Some people are debating that, but nevertheless, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're with us because it is good to be among the living. To see all of you guys here today. We're going to get started by saying hello to some of the people in the chat, and then we shall get into the subjects at hand. So we're going to be getting into, we're going to start off with Zero coming in and saying, after months of absence, I'm back. Good to see you in the chat, Zero. We have Bryce coming in. Oop. Saying, good afternoon, JB and comrades. Good to see you, Bryce. Nice to have you all up in here. And by the way, don't forget, I saw you in the mutual aid workshop for Savvy Sabs. I saw your face, and guess what? I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to help your people in the area, aren't you? I see you. I see that compassionate side, my chocolate brother. All right, I'm looking at you, and also looking at you, Holly, coming in and saying, hey, JB. Hi, Holly. Good to see you all up in my chat, spreading love and joy. I just love y'all. Thank you. All right, so we're going to get right into this because I want to make sure that I am very cognizant of my time because I am trying to be responsible. I'm trying to be the most responsible person as I can be because it is your time as well. Now, let's get into the topics at hand that we're going to be getting into. So we have the thumbnail that we're going to be sharing here first. So later in the show, we're going to be talking about clowned. Why Donald Trump has been clowned, owned by really the pursuit of a multipolar world. And so Spain and China, they said, you know what? We don't need you anymore. So we're going to be looking into that entire situation, what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. And the one thing that happened that really shows that the United States can be a paper tiger in a lot of these situations. And so we get into that. But we also shall be getting into driving up unemployment. We're going to be talking about a particular company that I've been seeing locally in my own area that gave me pause one day when it stopped me in my tracks. And so we're going to be getting into that and how it is going to be making more people unemployed, and it's going to be driving up the crisis within our economy. But first, we're going to be discussing something that not just affects those of us here in Florida, but it also may be affecting many of you throughout the state. And we're going to be talking about what has been banned. And this is going to be something I think that a lot of people need to hear, especially within the state of Florida. So we're going to be starting right here, banned in Florida. So we're going to get started with this because this one is absolutely necessary in order for us really to know what we can and can't have by the issue of the state. So we'll be getting into that right about now. As soon as I get my bearings straight. Okay. We are ready. If you're on SNAP benefits, aka food stamps, be prepared to have more limitations on you beginning on April 20th of this year, 2026, and just 6 days from now. Once again, our government punishes the worker instead of corporations to create products that create products that are bad for us. And so we're going to get into this here because I want you guys to take the poll. Is this the right move, or would this be disastrous for the working class? Or it just doesn't seem unfair? Let's get into this story and then we shall continue on.
What you can and can't buy for SNAP recipients are about to change here in Florida. I'm community correspondent Jarrell Baker. Now, items like Butterfingers, sodas, and several other sugary sweets will be banned in Florida for SNAP recipients. I spoke with a local mother who says that it's unfair. Soon, Kit Kat and Hershey bars and more of these food items will be less sweet for families on SNAP benefits.
The same way we don't tell anyone how to spend their paycheck, I don't feel like we should be controlled on what we're supposed to eat.
Starting in April this year, Florida plans to ban soda, candy, and other items deemed sugary junk food from SNAP, joining more than a dozen other states moving to make similar changes.
It's about nutrition, and there's no nutrition in these products. We shouldn't be paying for them with taxpayer money.
The changes are all a part of the government's Make America Healthy Again initiative, pushing to tackle obesity.
I have 7 kids. So just this past month, there was 3 birthdays. Imagine if I couldn't go to Walmart or Publix and get that pre-made cake.
Local mother Destiny Perez Parado, who uses SNAP benefits, says that restrictions will make it harder for her to feed her family.
The whole dynamic.
So let's stop there for a second. So this is a big thing that is actually going on here in Florida, especially because you have a lot of people who are saying that this isn't fair because these are certain foods that are being banned, right? And there's actually a list of these foods being banned. We'll get back to this video in a second. I want to share with you guys what is actually being banned so that we know and we're cognizant of what it will be. Let me enlarge this as well, just so that everybody can read along with me. So this is from the Florida Secretary of the Florida Department of Children and Families to the Honorable Ron DeSantis. So it says, "Dear Governor DeSantis," it says, "The Food and Nutrition Service, FNS, is pleased to approve the requested date of May 29, 2025 from the Florida Department of Children and Families to allow the state to operate a novel demonstration project to amend the statutory definition of food for purpose by the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, recipients from, quote, any food or food product for home consumption, end quote, to exclude soda, energy drinks, candy, and prepared desserts. This approval, subject to the enclosed terms and conditions, is for 2 years, effective January 1st, 2026. Now, this is actually going to be starting in Florida on April 20th of this year. And so let's go back over that list, right? So they say soda, candy, energy drinks, and prepared desserts. And so these are things that are excluded. Now, one of the things that I do want to ask, are y'all banning Kool-Aid? Because you can control the sugar, how much you put in there, right? Are you going to be banning orange juice? Is orange juice banned? What about apple juice? What about pure cane sugar that you buy in a 5-pound bag? Are you guys going to be banning that? So many things, right? that are listed. And please make sure to take the poll, because some people think that this is fair. But my question is, and people say the argument, well, it's my tax dollars going to these people. And it's, yes, it's your tax dollars going to them. But if we, it's kind of a weird thing, because we want to control the food that goes in the mouths of poor and working poor people. But we don't want to be as fervent in our control of what goes in and what is done with our money from billionaires and people in the Epstein class. Help me to understand that. Why is it that we want to control this group that barely has any power, but we don't want to take power? We don't want to keep that same energy for the power that literally was just had all their names on a list. And we're not doing something about it? I mean, am I missing something? Because this feels like Americans not having control, and they feel like they don't have control of something. So they have to have control of something in order to make them feel like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're in the driver's seat, right? All right. In fact, let me see. Hang on just 1 second. Let me grab something really quick for you guys. Okay. Let me share something. Okay. Back in the days, right? And my brother used to do this with my nieces and nephews. He'd be playing video games, right? But he doesn't want them to play the video game because he's trying to win. He doesn't want to mess up. So what does he do in order to keep them occupied? He hands them a controller that is not plugged in. You see, back in the day, for you younger people, all of our controllers were wired, right? In fact, I'm looking at one right now. But these days, they're wireless, right? But it's basically the equivalent of handing a controller to a child, to a 2 or 3 year old that's not plugged in, that's not connected, and just letting them do this. And they think in their little minds that they're controlling something, but they're not. To me, this is the equivalent of doing that and making the voter, the person who doesn't qualify for food stamps or who can't qualify for food stamps, feel like they have some semblance of control, but the control that they have is over the people who don't have power. Doesn't that feel? How does that make you feel? Am I wrong in that respect? Please let me know. But that's what it feels like. Another point is, if you're saying that this is what they can and can't have, are you going to be also controlling granola bars for kids? Are you going to be limiting how much? Are you going to stop the boxes of Cocoa Pebbles and Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms? Lucky Charms is full of sugar. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Hell, even Quaker oatmeal. The instant flavored packs, all that is full of sugar. Are you going to stop them from making that? What about the pre-prepared meals? Guys, remember Kid Cuisine? If you know, you know. The banquet meals, the banquet dinners that are full of salt and fat and sugar. What about those? What about the cold cuts, the bologna, the turkey, the ham, the roast beef, the bologna? What about the cheese? What about the Velveeta sliced cheese or the Kraft sliced cheese? Are we going to be controlling the sodium intake of that? Where's the line here? The reason why I'm asking is because once you give them an inch to control what goes into one particular group, particularly a marginalized group's mouth, then they can move it over to more people. Now, if you're so focused on the obesity within the country, right? Speaking as somebody that fits that criteria, and I'm literally counting calories. Thanks, Sabby. Counting calories in order to be healthier. Are we going to be doing things that make it easier for them to have access to the healthier foods that they can have? These are just some of the questions that I have, right? Now, I'm going to continue playing the video, but I want us to continue to ponder upon some of the questions I posed, because it feels like the power or the direction that is this type of policy goes, it doesn't hold the people who are truly responsible to account. It's shifting the responsibility to people under duress. Let's continue on.
Your family.
The whole dynamic is just, it's not fair. And then when it comes to people that don't have the availability to cook, for a year, we didn't have a stove. So we lived off of, like store-bought items that were already pre-prepared.
She also points out that hot foods and several other items are already banned.
There's already limitations when it comes to what we can buy, because not all things are EBT approved, not all brands.
This follows a lengthy.
So here's something that a lot of people who are in Florida do not know. You cannot buy hot food on food stamps, EBT, SNAP benefits. You cannot get hot food. I don't care if they at the deli make some fresh collard greens, hot off the pot. Collard greens are very healthy for you, right? They can even season it with smoked turkey instead, just to lower the calorie content. Make it low sodium, right? But because it's hot, because it's hot, you cannot have it. But if they take that same cooked collard greens and then they store it in the fridge overnight and then put it in the refrigerated section of that same deli, all because of the temperature, now you can buy it and go home and heat it up. That's how I was able to get chicken wings from the grocery store back in the day, because they were cooked there and then they were kept overnight. Then they were cold, and then I was able to get them, toss them in the oven, and then have crispy chicken wings. But that was, you know what I mean? But it's like, wait, just all because of a temperature? And what about the people who don't have access or who don't have a stove? What about the people who have just a kitchenette? Or maybe not? What if all they have is a microwave? You know? But somehow it becomes a personal problem, a personal failing, even though they're under duress trying to survive in a system that keeps them under duress by design. So I ask again, do you think this is fair? Please take the poll. I would like to know. Let's continue on.
Government shut down last year that paused SNAP benefits, also known as food stamps, for more than a month.
For more restrictions to be put in place after we just lost our food stamps for a while. And then to fear more are coming, it's like we have to completely rearrange the way we eat.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, SNAP waivers approved now and in the coming months will last 2 years with the option to extend them for 3 more. Each state will also be required to study the impact of these changes. In Orange County, Jarrell Baker, News 6.
So here's I have a series of questions that I wanted to ask. Because I'm thinking to myself, if you really want to combat the obesity, heart disease, diabetes epidemic that we have within our country, I think that is a worthwhile and worthy fight to have. But that fight also has to be fought in a way that is effective. So I wrote a list of questions down for me to ask. And if you'll humor me, I just want to ask these few questions. Right? So, they focus on the individual choices rather than the system that are kept in place by our same government. Why aren't we tackling having a universal healthcare system, more walkable cities, workers owning these companies that will push to make their food they produce healthier because they know their families will consume it? Let's tackle this one by one. A universal nationalized healthcare system. Why aren't we fighting for that? If we're so focused on obesity, we're so focused on heart disease, if we're so focused on diabetes, why aren't we focusing on trying to tackle it through universal healthcare? Did you know that in Cuba, they have neighborhood dietitians? Just like you have your primary care doctor, physician within your area, and they have doctors by the boatload in Cuba. They also have dietitians in neighborhoods that also educate the public, and they visit, and you have appointments with your dietitian, not just with your doctor. How many of you have actually went to and consulted and seen a dietitian? I have a dietitian, but my dietitian was one when I was on dialysis. I had to have a registered dietitian that was registered and trained in the renal diet. And now that I am post-transplant, and I just celebrated a year post-transplant, I also have a transplant dietitian that's educating me on what I can and cannot have, or what I should avoid as a transplant recipient due to the immunosuppressive medications that I am on, because they want to make sure I'm as healthy as possible. And also the foods that would be endangering me health-wise that could endanger the kidney that I just got. But how many people who are healthy, and if you have your regular doctor, how many of you who have a dietitian with that as well? You don't? Really? Why? Oh, maybe because it costs too much money? Maybe because your health insurance doesn't cover a dietitian to help you prevent getting different diseases and conditions? That's interesting. Because it shouldn't be that way. I think it'd be great for us to have more guides. A dietitian that guides you on what we put into our body, I think is just as important. Another question. to add to that other point, right? More walkable cities. We are the most car-centric society in the world. And typically, your the amount of sugar that you take in, well, that sugar drops immediately after a meal when you walk, even if it's just 5 minutes, right? This is why after meals, I try to walk for a few minutes after I finish a meal, just so that everything settles, right? It also aids in digestion. By the way, I am not a medical or dietary expert. I'm just repeating what I found out through medical studies. And so please consult your own doctor whenever you need to regarding health or nutrition related issues. But my question is, why do we have walkable cities? Why is it always a car-centric society? Why aren't workers owning these companies? Because if you're a worker owning these companies and you know that your family will be consuming these products, well, wouldn't it behoove you to make sure these products are healthy enough so that you feel comfortable if your family is eating the products that you help create? My step-grandfather in the past, he used to work for Mrs. Smith's, the same people that made the apple pies. Oh, yeah. Mrs. Smith's and Mrs. Paul's and all that. Yeah, he used to work in their factories. Now, what if he was a worker owner? Let's say they were a worker co-op. Wouldn't it behoove them to make sure that they're using fresh ingredients instead of using high fructose corn syrup in order to make the apple filling? They'll use regular pure cane sugar instead, right? Instead of using some fat byproduct in order to make their flaky crust, they just use either regular vegetable shortening or they use regular butter instead from grass-fed cows. But here's the crazy part. Maybe it's just me, but that's not really a priority to go after the corporations. Next question. Why not push corporations for less sugar, less salt, and less unhealthy fats and chemicals in our food? Now, I know that RFK Jr. essentially said that, well, we need to tackle these companies so that they don't include things like yellow number 4. I think it's red 40, things like that, right? Okay. At the same time, what about the sugar, salt, and fat content that are in these foods that are being pushed our way? And these are the items that cause you to crave them more. And so they'll do that because they want to have the fat content for the richness. They want sugar for the sweetness. They want salt for the saltiness, and they want the umami as well for that really distinct flavor that really causes you to continue eating. But here's the problem. They don't want to tackle that. They want to tackle you, even though that's what's available to you. That's what was being pushed to you within the aisles of these grocery stores. And at the end, when you go to the checkout counter, what's always there? Isn't it the candy? Isn't it the small bags of chips and snack foods that are full of salt, fat, and sugar? Why are they always the ones? Why isn't it populated by, bananas that are outside the bunch, apples, oranges, kiwis, maybe strawberries? Why don't they just put that there? Why is there a little refrigerator full of sugary sodas and sugary fruit drinks? Why isn't it full of water and maybe watermelon chunks, cantaloupe, honeydew, maybe pineapples cut up? Why aren't those kept right there instead? I'm just thinking off the top of my head right here, right? Why not in these food deserts in areas which fresh produce is more scarce? Because who does SNAP benefit the most? It's the people who live in these food deserts. Or if they live next to a corner store like I do, where most of the food there is ultra processed. Also, one of the things that was mentioned in the banned foods is prepared desserts. Well, when was the last time you had one of them little Debbie snack cakes? When was the last time you had one of those Hostess snack cakes? Right? So here's the thing. Like all these things that you see all the time everywhere, I will see little Debbie snack cakes before I will ever see fruit and vegetables. I'll see them more often because if you go to a gas station, you'll see them. If you go to a grocery store, you'll see them. But if you go to a gas station, what are the odds that you're going to see fresh produce? And then even if you do go to a gas station, there's fresh produce, it's in a plastic pack that's already been cut up, right? And then you look at the price, and the price is so expensive that the snacks that with the salt, fat, and sugar are cheaper than the stuff that you get there. And then people go, well, you got to go to the grocery stores. But what if there are no grocery stores close by? What if you don't have a car? What if you have to take the bus? What if you don't have time to wait for the bus in order to be able to get it? What if it's raining and you can't stand out in the rain because you need to get the bus? And what if you have a bus stop that doesn't have something over to cover you, so you have to stand out in the rain in order to be able to get the bus, in order to be able to get the grocery store, and then sit in the rain again, wait for the bus, then take your behind back home, and then you're soaking wet. You might even catch a cold by the time you get home because you've been wet the entire time. I'm speaking from experience, by the way. What if you don't have the strength or energy to be able to haul 5, 6, 7, 8 bags by yourself? And that's the only day you have to go shopping. I'm speaking from experience, by the way. We're going to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Now, why not pay a living wage to people so that they don't have to need food stamps in the first place and they can spend more time cooking at home? That's also another factor. I'm not endorsing what the guy did at the toilet paper warehouse, but you should pay people enough to live. You should. And if you don't want them to buy these cheap behind foods that are not very good for you, then pay them enough to afford these foods without having to wonder if they should pay their rent or not, or if they should underpay their electric bill. So then they start to be over each month. Why not expand local farms to push for more locally grown food to sustain communities? Do we have all these factory farms? Why not just have local farms? All these farmers, especially that are suffering right now because the Strait of Hormuz is closed to the west, particularly, and now that fertilizer is not going through. So guess what? These farmers are not doing very well, especially the black farmers. Can we talk about them? Because they're doing even worse. Why not end these big corporate accounts with food manufacturers that send their food to our schools and have people who work in those lunchrooms actually cook instead? because God knows how long TG Lee has had accounts with school boards or school systems all over this country, having us drink their milk. And then you also had that huge Got Milk campaign in order for them to sell more. Because that's what it was. It wasn't actually because they thought, oh, well, milk is just healthier for you, so we just want our kids to drink more milk to be healthier. No. It was a business decision. And by the way, calcium doesn't just come from milk. There's way more calcium in green leafy vegetables. And so this is why I ask these questions, because a lot of times people think, these people, they shouldn't have these types of food. And I'm like, who are you to say who should and shouldn't have what? And then on top of it, they're like, well, it's about their health. I'm like, you're focused on the health of them. Here's my thing. And you talk about it's your tax dollars. Talk about it's your tax dollars. You pay for those roads. You pay for those bridges. Your tax dollars are literally going to people who are riding down these roads and bridges to do some irresponsible things all day, every single day. But you guys don't talk about, oh man, well, we should place certain limitations on people on where they can drive and where they can't drive according on these roads. And my thing is like, if we're really going to talk about the health and safety of people, then let's get on the corporations that are literally pushing and hawking this stuff into our direction. I think that is a more worthwhile conversation to have. And so when I look at people like RFK Jr., I feel like, first of all, why in the world do we have a lawyer that's head of Health and Human Services? That's my question. Because shouldn't it be a doctor? Shouldn't it be a physician that's head of Health and Human Services? Why are we entrusting that to a lawyer who is not educated on that? It doesn't make sense to me. I want to share something with you guys. Because people are like, oh, we should remove soda. Okay. Well, why aren't we making it like, hold on. We're talking about removing soda, and yet, does Flint have clean water yet? Does Jackson, Mississippi have clean water yet? I'm just curious. What's going on with East Palestine, Ohio? Are they still breathing in that toxic air right now? Are we going to be talking about that? It's weird. It's weird to me. It's just weird. Let's do one more thing. I want to share what RFK Jr. said in regards to this.
When I was a little boy living in this city, my uncle was president. I was 10 years old. The chronic disease rate in our country was around 3%. We spent zero on chronic disease. Chronic disease in our children is up to 60%.
Why, Robert? Why is it up 60%? Is it because people chose that more specifically, or does it have something to do with the big corporations? Now, if these soda companies want to stop adding high fructose corn syrup into their sodas, fine, great, I'm all for it. Okay, start doing it with pure cane sugar. While we're at it, instead of using plastic bottles, maybe we should start going back to glass bottles. And don't think cans are without plastic because the lining inside those cans have a plastic film in order to keep it from actually the acidity in the soda from corroding the aluminum that is inside those cans. So you're still consuming plastic even when you have a can of soda. You're still hitting the plastic. You know, it's funny when they dissolve cans in, I forgot the chemical it is. It's a sort of acid, but they'll put a can of Coke or Sprite or whatever in this acid and it eats the aluminum, right? And then they'll lift it up, but it's wiggling. And you're like, what is that? That's the plastic film that's coated inside the can before it's filled up with soda. So you're still encountering plastic from the cans. Even when you have bottled, the caps have plastic film at the tops of the tops of the caps. Sorry. But that's how they have it. So it still comes into contact with some plastic, but nowhere near as, say, a plastic bottle, or a can. And he's talking about microplastics, but are we actually going to be tackling that? Maybe all bottles of all soda should be put in glass bottles. Maybe it should be that. Anyway, let's continue.
We spend about $1.7 trillion a year treating it.
Okay, so we spend $1.7 trillion. You know what would bring down that price? A lot of stuff I just asked questions about. That would bring down the price. And then universal healthcare wouldn't be that expensive then, wouldn't it? Let's continue on.
The cost is going up 2% faster than our economy is growing, so it's unsustainable. Secretary Rollins pointed out about 75% of our kids can't qualify for military service.
Is that what this is about? Is that what this is actually about? Because you think that they need to be healthy enough to die for another rich man's war? Secretary Kennedy? Because honestly, the greed of the corporations made it so that most of our young people are not fit for service. This is the same thing. I think it was said, was it Marx or Lenin that said that capitalism will hang itself with the rope that it sells us with. I think I messed up that quote, but y'all get the idea. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
But the injuries are much deeper. We have a whole generation that's plagued by autoimmune diseases, by neurological diseases, by allergic diseases, food allergies, peanut allergies, etc. The fertility in our children has dropped dramatically. Girls are reaching puberty 6 years earlier. American teenage boys have sperm counts that are about 50% of 65-year-old men. Their testosterone is about half of what a 65-year-old man has. So this is a crisis for our country. The cancer rates are also exploding. We know that the part of the problem is that we're not giving our children good food. The exposures are coming from chemical additives in our food. And we need to create, and then just bad food, sugar drinks like sodas. And for 20 years, Democrats and Republicans have been talking about this on Capitol Hill and saying, why are we paying for this? If somebody wants to drink a soda pop, we have no problem with that. We believe that we have freedom of choice in this country. Taxpayer dollars should not be funding these injuries to our children.
But you did fund these injuries to the kids. When Big Sugar lobbied you guys said yes. When these big corporations, these multinational food corporations decided to inject our food with hormones and chemicals, you guys said yes. These corporations only can do what you allow, and you allowed it. And now you're punishing people who don't have power for the inactions of the government in which you work for. It's not the poor people's fault. It's your fault. All of you. It's not their fault. That's basically, we live in a system where you go into an ice cream shop and they say you can have any flavor you want as long as it's vanilla. That's the system that we live in. So don't tell me, oh, well, you guys can't have these particular foods on the taxpayer's dime. You're murdering brown kids abroad and black kids abroad on the taxpayer's dime. You're doing things against what the taxpayer wants, but y'all don't have a problem with that. So if little Shane or little Megan wants to have a chocolate bar, or if they want to eat some s'mores, I think that's at least a little bit better than a little Iranian girl being blown up while she's at school. I think I'd rather pay for that with my tax dollars than for a little kid to be killed mercilessly by some supremacist in Gaza. And if you really want to control this, I ask questions that could actually help control the prevalence of a lot of these diseases. And the funny thing is, he was focusing on the fertility. You know why he's focusing on the fertility? I'm going to tell you exactly why. Somebody, I think it was in the Biden administration, said it. They call it human capital stock. That means we need enough workers in order to produce more so that the top people, the rich people, the Epstein class can have more and more and more. So they need your kids in order to be able to reproduce a whole lot more. Now, I don't know how true this is, but I think I heard in passing about somebody complaining that the teen pregnancy rate is down. That's a good thing. Apparently not to them, because they need more humans to be born. And they don't care if it ruins, or I shouldn't say ruin, but if it causes difficulty in a teenager's life. Shouldn't we be working towards a system that actually facilitates us to be able to have more healthy food? And shouldn't that be done systemically? Because you cannot fix systemic issues with individual solutions. And you're individualizing the solution when the problem is systemic. And just telling people, oh, you guys can't have this. Why aren't you pointing that finger to the corporations? Do you know how expensive a bag of broccoli is? I already talked about it on my show. And the thing is, like, I get my broccoli frozen. I get the big bird's eye 52-ounce bag of broccoli. I can go through that much broccoli. I can do like 2 bags a week of that broccoli by myself. You know how expensive that broccoli is? People go, well, why don't you just go store brand? Because they don't make bags that big. And it's not as economic to get all these tiny little bags, all these little 12-ounce bags. It's not as economic. unless you can find a store that actually makes a big bag of broccoli that's 52 ounces or larger, all right, then give me a call, give me a ring, give me an email, something. Send me a signal. Fly it by pigeon. Talking about all these issues, and he keeps circling around what the problem actually is without actually tackling the problem, because he's afraid that the people who are behind him are going to lambaste him for attacking capitalism, when capitalism has been the problem the entire time.
And we pay for it twice. We pay for it through the SNAP program, and we pay for it later on with diabetes and obesity.
Well, maybe if we actually just, I don't know, pay people a living wage, and then made sure that they didn't have these food deserts because of all these stupid mergers and acquisitions from these big corporations that put money in y'all's pockets, then maybe, just maybe, wouldn't have to worry about this. But yet now you're trying to attack the people, the working poor, for something that really is at the fault of the big corporations. Maybe, just maybe, if you guys didn't make it harder for farmers, for local farmers to be able to afford their farms, if you didn't allow Monsanto to start claiming seed and owning seed, then maybe, just maybe, farmers would be able to be more sustainable, and we'd be able to buy from them instead of having to buy from these big corporate multinationals that pump our food full of salt, fat, sugar, and additives instead. But that's the choice that we have. You can have any ice cream you want as long as it's vanilla. Well, this is the result you got, Robert. Jesus H. Christ, I tell you.
And we pay for that at CMS, which is my agency, through Medicaid and Medicare.
Which, you're not a doctor.
And President Trump has asked us to make America healthy again. The first time in our history, we have a Secretary of Agriculture of USDA, Brooke Rollins, who has the courage and gumption to actually do what people have been talking about for years and years.
I don't believe about somebody who wants to make America healthy when he literally has a DoorDash driver delivering McDonald's to the White House door. Maybe just not like, look, I am post-duopoly. I do not believe either party is good for us, because both Democrats and Republicans suck. And guess what? They don't do a damn thing for us. But at least visually, optically, Michelle Obama planted a garden in front of the White House. At least they pretended that they cared about the plight of people's health. Right? But the problem is the corporations, which Obama really didn't tackle that well. Because guess what? He's in their pockets too. And of course, Trump isn't going to. That Big Mac eating traffic cone doesn't give a damn about our health. It's really just about control. That's what it's about. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to insult traffic cones like that, but you guys know what I mean.
Years on both sides of the aisle. And one of the reasons this hasn't happened before is because the lobbying headwinds, the power of these industries, the sugar industries, particularly sugar soda. And Secretary Rollins told me, yeah, they came to my office. And I said, what did you tell them? And she said, we're paying for nutrition, and there's no nutrition in your product. And that one of the leaders of the lobbying group said, well, this program is not about nutrition. And she said, it's called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's about nutrition, and there's no nutrition in these products. We shouldn't be paying for them with taxpayer money.
There's also no nutrition in United States Tomahawk missiles going in and bombing a school full of girls. Is that school of girls a threat to U.S. national security? You see the hypocrisy, don't you? So that's what this is about. This is about control. But I'm just letting y'all know that this is what's coming down the pike in about 6 days on April 20th, that you will not be able to get any of these things, right, on food stamps. And this is another reason why I talk about mutual aid. Because with mutual aid, I'm not saying that we're going to be handing out candies and cookies and pies and all this stuff. No. But we want to hand out as healthy food as possible in order to make sure that people are okay. And if that includes a sweet treat, all right, fine. And I'm taught everything in moderation. So, like, look, if I eat healthy like 99% of the time, if that 1% I want a cookie or something like that, I should be able to do it. But people are like, well, just get it with your own money. And I'm like, well, I pay taxes too, so I am getting it with my own money. And that's another thing people don't think about. Some people who are on, or many people who are on SNAP benefits, they work. They have jobs. And guess what? Taxes are taken out from their paychecks. And where did that tax money go? It goes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. But yet, even though they're paying into it, you're telling them what they can and can't have, even though that's their money too. Wow. The hypocrisy of it all. Let's take a look at the poll, guys. I want to take a look at the poll and see exactly what people have said in regards to this issue, because ultimately I feel like, it's just me, that some people will feel the same way as I do. Now, if you don't, that is okay. I am not going to be upset or angry or mad at you. We can fight about it in the comments. You want to fight about it? We'll do that. But let me just share with you guys. I just really want to see the I want to see what people have said. Right? Now, let me, is this going to enlarge? Yes, it is. All right. So let's go here and see what y'all say. Let me share the screen. All righty. So out of 35 votes, it says, do you think it's fair to ban certain foods from SNAP benefits? 11% said yes, ban them. 74% said no, let the recipient choose. 3% said, I don't know. And then 11% said, I don't live in the United States. So there you go. Now, my question to the people who said that they don't live in the United States, if you did live in the United States, how would you choose? Like, which one would you choose if you did live in the United States? I'm actually curious about that too. But look, to me, it's about control. And the control should shift from trying to control the worker to controlling the institutions that are responsible for the food being the quality that it is. And if we're not going to have it the way we want to in this system, that means we need to change the system that we currently have. Now, how you like them apples? Go ahead and like the stream, guys. Let's get into the comments here. I know y'all got some things to say. The way I said it, if my tone was higher, I probably would have sounded like Loretta Devine. Now y'all got some things to say. Okay. Remember what she said? I looked into his eyes. Her mother knows. Anyway, let me see here if we have any Rumble rants. No Rumble rants right now, but we will get to some of the comments in Rumble. Let me check on the Kick side to see if we have any gifted subs. I think we're okay. Yes, we're okay on the Kick side. Great. Cool. Excellent. Now, I know a lot of people got some things to say. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Because it's about food, you know, and we all like to eat. All right, Roger says, let's change that bad boy around. How about, do you think it's fair to ban certain ingredients banned in other countries from being sold to us and our food in this country? Now, there's a question for you. That's actually a really good point. Like for instance, I think stovetop stuffing is actually banned in Europe. Stovetop stuffing, is that on the ban list for SNAP benefits? I highly doubt they are, and yet it's banned in Europe. Why is it banned in Europe? Right? And don't they have lower obesity rates? I think that's Roger said, the Mac is back. Return of the Mac. Once again, return of the Mac. Sorry. Roger, you know I can see you bumping that in the car. I'm back on chat, just back on the road today. Okay, cool. All right. I'm sorry. Yes, I cried. Yes, I cried. Okay, sorry. I couldn't help myself. All right. We have Kurt, Boss Messiah, says, hey, JB, good to see you, Kurt. All right. That's also the first name of Nightcrawler in X-Men. His name is Kurt Wagner, or Kurt Wagner. But in the circus, I was known as the incredible Nightcrawler. Let me see. Kurt says, I pushed another prompt on the poll, but it came up different. YouTube makes me sick. Ooh. Sorry about that. Yeah. Oh, hey, Indie News Network says, happy 1 year with your new kidney, JB. Thank you so very much, guys. Indie News Network, they do great work on the ground. If you guys want to, you guys can go and subscribe to their channel. They actually have really great people over there that actually talk about the news. They talk about a lot of stuff that people aren't talking about. So there's some things that people miss. Go ahead and check them out there. Go ahead and click on his picture and then go to their channel. Jacqueline says, and what goes into food that people in Florida will be allowed to eat in a few days' time? What goes into food that people in Florida will be allowed to eat? Everything else. And here's the crazy part. Florida was known for its sugar cane, right? Just like how Cuba was known for its sugar cane. That's one of the reasons why the United States basically had Cuba as a vassal before the revolution. And there's a lot of sugar plantations, not just here in Florida, but there were sugar plantations in Cuba. When you had the Batista regime, that was, basically horrible to Cuban people, but it was big sugar that was running everything. Let me see here. Yes, Roger. Yes, you can use Coca-Cola to clean bathtubs and also dissolve a lot of the buildup on car batteries because of the acidity in Coca-Cola. Yes, Jacqueline, this is absolutely right. The way they are infantilizing poor people, like they cannot be trusted to make the right nutritional choices. That's another point, because my thing is like you're infantilizing them because they just so happen to be in a socioeconomic position that is not the same as everybody else. And the thing is like, is that actually their fault, or is it the system that puts people in that position? And people are going to look at me like I'm crazy, and this is going to be very radical. But within this system that needs people to be poor and homeless, it's not your fault, because the system actually drives people, most people, to get into a position of either poor and homeless or working poor. Most of the people watching right now are either poor or working poor, including the host. Yes, And so people think to themselves, well, no, I'm okay. Look, baby, let me tell you something. If you're under $150,000 a year, you're really not that okay. You're just not. And that's the way the system runs. It needs you to not be okay. That's how they operate. This Seldon says in Cuba they have a treatment for diabetes that avoid losing your limbs. Herberprot B. Americans cannot have it because of the embargo. Yes, exactly. And on top of that, let's not forget the lung cancer vaccine that they have as well. And they're on their way coming up with a cure for diabetes in China. So yes. Hemcar says, what the F? They ate Nat Turner. Makes me wonder if Ellen cannibalized and he... I'm not trying to laugh. But yes, they did do that to Nat Turner. They didn't want any... And it wasn't Nat Turner's the only person that they did that to. They did that to a lot of my ancestors. Yeah. This is why the United Nations said that the transatlantic slave trade was actually the worst event in human history. Think about all the awful events in human history and the amount of deaths, and the transatlantic slave trade was the worst. 12 to 15 million murdered. And when we talk about the transatlantic slave trade, we're not just talking about the United States. We're talking about the Caribbean. We're talking about Central America. We're talking about South America. Yes. 12 to 15 million. That's how bad it was. If you can literally change the ecosystem and the traveling patterns of sharks, that's major. The migration patterns, I mean. Yeah. It's wild. It's just wild. CBC voter saying hello. Good to see a CBC voter. We have Crazy Cat coming in saying instead of cutting back on SNAP, the federal government should be providing nutritious food to all. It is the best interest of our country. Yes. Look, I'm gonna be real with you right here before I move on. But I'd rather we pay food directly to poor folks than give that money to Raytheon, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. Like, look, one missile costs millions of dollars, but that millions of dollars, instead of having that missile that murders people abroad, imagine how many families that could feed for a year. We're literally spending $1.5 trillion with the T, trillion dollars on our military to make a couple of people rich instead of actually feeding the people in this country proper nutrition. Priorities? Roger says, JB, I found the cosmic egg, the seed, explaining why we have let corporations sacrifice the common good, public safety, and the well-being for the corporation's solemn duty to maximize profit. I will send it to you on DM. Great for your next show. I will be driving until... Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. So Marlo says they are banning frozen convenience foods. This will affect people with disabilities in a major way. This is another thing. They do not care about people with disabilities. They do not care about people who are neurospicy, right? They do not care about people who have maybe slight intellectual disabilities where they can still survive on their own. There's just so much involved, right? Instead of going to these corporations and instead of going to Banquet, Swanson Foods, all these different corporations that do make like the hot foods, Hell, the people who make these frozen beef and bean burritos and all that stuff. Like, instead of going to them and say, hey, you're only allowed to have this much sodium. You're only allowed to do this type of, and also the types of fat that are used, right? Are they using these regular seed oils, or are they using things like olive oil, avocado oil, things like that? Are they? No? Okay, so you guys need to change it. But they're not. They're not at all. Because they need to maximize their profit. This is all about maximizing profit, and they want to keep the maximizing profit part, but they want to put all of that burden on you and say, you can't have this, you can't have that. This is why corporations are treated more like human beings than we are. Yes, Martel. Tell us more about that. The slave routes changed the migration patterns for sharks. Yes, because so many chattel slaves that were kidnapped and taken prisoner from West Africa because we were jumping from the ships, or we tried to do a rebellion on the ship, or if we died while on the ships, instead of keeping us on the ships and then burying our bodies as soon as we got to shore, they threw our dead ancestors' bodies off the ships, and then the sharks would come and eat that. Or our ancestors would jump from the ships to escape, and because you're in the middle of the Atlantic, you can't swim to safety. So guess what? You get tired, you get exhausted, something happens, and then next thing you know, sharks will come and do what they do. And so then the travel patterns of sharks, literally the migration patterns changed because there was so much available food in the ocean for them. And this is what the transatlantic slave trade has done. Not to mention, it wasn't just sharks that were eating us. It was white people that were eating us too when we got here. And it's just like, people are like, oh my God, I can't believe this actually happened. Baby, everything that happened in the Epstein files has been happening for 250 years of this country's history. They ate us. They use our body parts to put on mantles as souvenirs. They used to use our hair and put it inside of furniture for cushioning. Yes. Yes. That's Black history. That's white history. That's American history. And that's something that people aren't learning about. There's a book. I need to get it because I want to read it. It's called The Delectable Negro. The Delectable Negro. And it actually chronicles about how we were eaten, cannibalized within the United States. So much, man. So much. And yes, food sensitivity issues. Yes, Marlo says, yes, food sensitivity issues are real. And unfortunately, they heavily discredited and misunderstood. Yes, like people with celiac disease, right? People who have food sensitivities. What about people who are like me on dialysis? Z Sundra says it's never about making us healthier, our lives easier. Than in NYC, they're kicking non-citizens off insurance coverage. My friend's parent had gone months without high blood pressure meds. Yeah. Yeah. And yes, Hempcar, this is Jeffrey Dahmer Nazi stuff. Absolutely. They have learned this stuff from the worst people in the world have learned all the things that they know from early history during the transatlantic slave trade, including Adolf Hitler himself. I gotta keep going, guys, because I'm losing track right now. But let's get into the next subject. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to the patrons on Patreon because they make this channel possible. They are the flux capacitor that makes time travel possible. Yes, that was a nerd reference. Yes, I don't care because I'm gonna wear my nerd flag. I'm gonna wear it on my sleeve. So here are the patron tiers. You have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters. Then we have Comrades, Solidarity, and JB members. And welcome new member Allison Tamburini. Sugar Tambourine gonna keep us up a whistling. All right, guys. Thank you so very much for all that. You guys literally keep the channel going. And if you guys would like to, if you guys do not want to do that. And by the way, I just know you guys are plagued like crazy with YouTube ads. To get around the ads, then I actually upload my clips as well as I upload all my clips and usually do it early before they come out on YouTube. Sometimes I'm not as early as I would like, and please forgive me for that. But I upload them to my Patreon as well, and so it's completely ad free. So if you guys want to just watch on Patreon, just become a patron. You guys can do it that way. So you guys have that there. Now, of course, I kept that up. My apologies. Okay. So, of course, we talked about foods that are banned, right? And that's going to be happening on the 20th. But we're going to be talking about ride shares. We're going to be talking about driving up unemployment. So we got to talk about this because this is a story that I know about this because my curiosity was hitting me hard when I saw this. And I was just like, what in the world is this? And then when I found out exactly what it was, I was like, oh, hell nah. No way. These people are actually doing this type of stuff. I was like, nah. So let me make sure I get to the part that I need to, because I'm not going to be doing this entire thing. Let me see. Oh, cool. We'll stop right there. Okay. And let's go here. So driving up unemployment. Oh, hell no. Hell no, Waymo. Hell no, Waymo. This is a story that I think that more people need to know more about because it is honestly going to be driving up unemployment, especially for drivers. There's been a major national conversation about AI over the past few months, but has anyone ever talked about issues surrounding AVs? What is AV, you ask, JB? Well, AV stands for autonomous vehicles. That's right. They're cutting out workers. And now the question is, who benefits and who loses? I guess you guys will pretty much know who the winners and losers will be. But I will be reacting to this clip out of More Perfect Union. Let's get into this because, and I'm not going to be able to show the entire thing, but I want to show this part. And we will discuss this at length, really to talk about how workers are being cut out.
At bypassing legislation. So if a city passes legislation that limits or that proposes certain controls, they can move up a level.
This is part of the artificial intelligence industry's broader strategy.
President Trump signed an executive order restricting states from creating their own regulations for artificial intelligence.
This winter, the self-driving cars debate went federal. And when senators got Waymo's executives in a room, they found out every car has someone watching it. The question was, where?
We have some in the U.S. and some abroad.
What percent are abroad?
Senator, I don't have that number for you.
In what countries are these employees located?
The Philippines.
That is completely unacceptable.
So first of all, here's the thing, right? So essentially, this is a problem where they are now, instead of underpaying workers who drive for rideshare services like Uber and Lyft, they're cutting out the workers entirely. These are AI self-driving cars. And my curiosity about this was piqued when I was walking home. I was walking home and I saw this car, this white car that looked like something from the future, like a DeLorean almost, like it went back in time. And so I see it and it says Waymo on the side. Now, a few weeks ago when I saw these, I'm thinking to myself, oh, you know what? That's probably one of those cars that's like doing like street view maps for like Google or Waze or something like that. And that's what I assumed it was when I first saw it, until I actually saw this story. And I remember a couple weeks back, I was walking and I saw one of these Waymo cars and I was like, wait, where's the driver? I was like, no way. There's no driver. And then the last time I was walking, it was Friday. I was walking and I was crossing the street and one of those Waymo cars. And look, I live basically in the hood and I see them all the time. And I'm walking across the street at the crosswalk and it's the first car that's stopped at the stoplight. I look at it. And as I'm looking, there's no driver. There's nobody in the car at all. And then there's a car next to him. And I look at the driver and I look at that car and I'm like, and that driver probably looked at the other car next to me. They were probably like, what in the hell? There's no driver in that car. And so I'm like, what is that about? I thought this was just, like mapping street view, because, of course, a satellite can't get a down on the ground street view. So I'm thinking that's what it was, but it's not. In fact, it's rideshare with no human drivers. And that's the scary part. So, and the problem is, it's not that it's less safe. It's actually very safe. That's what's bad. And I'm not saying it's bad that it's safe. I'm saying that it is cutting out workers entirely or nearly entirely. Now, like just one of the representatives from Waymo said, it is employing people to basically babysit from afar, but they're babysitting not here in the United States. They're babysitting in a completely other country. So the money that Waymo makes is actually going to the shareholders at the top, and whatever money is left over is going to people in a completely other country without it benefiting us Americans here at home. So we are literally paying for a service that takes money, dollars out of our neighborhoods in order to put it straight into the pockets of people who are billionaires and shareholders who don't give a damn about us or our neighborhoods. Let's continue on.
Destroying our jobs just for that, just the convenience to pay them cheaply is just really sad.
This is not a conversation the industry wants to have, so they changed the subject.
Choice A means seizing the moment for American leadership on autonomous vehicles. Then there is choice B, under which we reject this opportunity. China becomes the global leader. Members of the committee, I implore you to choose choice A.
It's A, America dominates AVs, or it's B, China. And I think there's C, D, E, F, G.
I think it's more should be a hybrid system where we'll still be drivers in the cars, still drivers in the trucks, but we use the AI to help us drive better.
That right there, what he just said. So he's a driver. I think he drives with Uber and Lyft. You have some that'll drive with both, right? And this is the position I come from. I don't feel that AI is a bad thing. It depends on how it's used. If it's used in service of the workers to make their jobs easier, I am all for it. But it is not to replace the workers, as well as AI should not be utilized to take the place of expression of human beings. That means art and different types of art, whether it be visual art, music, acting, dancing, all these things, it should not be used for that, right? Now, if you want it to assist you in certain things, I'm okay with that, but as long as it does not replace the worker in its entirety. If you want to use AI for jobs that nobody really wants to do, and if it's something that's simple task, okay, I'm fine with that. Let's say, for instance, you have an AI that that cleans toilets, or you have an automatic system, an automated bathroom cleaner for like public toilets. Okay, cool with that. People don't have to worry about having to clean somebody's what. Right? But when you are having this replacing human beings look, I'm gonna be real with you. Do not complain about the economy. If you are wealthy, do not complain about the economy. If people can't afford your stuff, if you're exiting them out of the economy through automation, don't complain about anything, because you're the one who's basically sabotaging your own pockets. You're sabotaging, and you're doing it for a short-term gain. Whereas, guess what? Long-term, we're not going to be able to survive. And then this is going to drive social unrest. And so people are, this is going to be the end, like the ending movie in iRobot, where the humans went to war with the NS5s. And so guess what? Humans will win. And so this is crazy. All because you want to automate everything so that you own everything. But here's the crazy part. You guys will keep, and I'm talking, when I say you guys, not you, I'm talking about the billionaires, the shareholders, the Epstein class. They will keep raising their prices in order to make more, because that's how capitalism operates. It needs infinite resources it needs infinite growth on a planet with finite resources. And so they're going to keep raising their prices. But guess what? If people cannot afford those prices, guess what? Then they're just not going to be riding. They'll be walking. They'll be taking public transportation. They'll be doing all the things rather than using your service. And then what are you going to do? Because you price them out. We're not going to use it. No. And guess what? I'm not using no driverless car. Nope. I already have a problem with Teslas and see how they did human beings. No. I am not getting no damn Waymo. For what? For that thing to lock the car? You remember Knight Rider? You remember Kit's alter ego? Not alter ego, but his opposite, Car? Those of you know, if you know, you know. And remember that part where Car locked this lady in the car? And then he started turning up the heat? And he tried to basically overheat her to death? I watched way too much science fiction back in the day to allow myself to get in that situation. Nope. And that's what, like, what? Come on now. Anyways, let's continue on. I'm talking too much. Thank you very much for, indulging me, but let's move on.
Other ideas: a cut of the profits back to workers, a tax on every ride, driver-owned investment funds, local government as a concept would suggest locals get a voice in this.
A worker-centered rollout would look very different. It would be slower, it would be more deliberate, it would involve much more political decisions about how the technology works and who it works for. We could think about lots of different policy approaches that emphasize introducing these technologies to benefit not just the public at large, but to kind of help drivers transition to new kinds of work.
But the people deciding the future of this industry don't answer to drivers or cities or riders.
All of us are under the same existential threat of losing our jobs. What happens to us is going to happen to all the workers behind us, whether they are other low-wage workers, predominantly immigrant workforces, or white-collar workers. We've been on the front lines of the fight against the gig economy. We're now on the front lines of the fight against AI. This is an AI fight, but it's framed as a AV or autonomous vehicle fight. And I think part of that is messaging to separate us from the AI fight.
That's by design.
The private company has no other real end goal other than to create shareholder value.
That part. It's about shareholder value. It is not about you. You are not part of the equation when it comes to them prospering. You will not take part of that prosperity. They don't want you part of it. They want you to contribute to them being prosperous, but they don't want you to benefit from that prosperity. And that's ultimately what it is. You are still being exploited. The only difference is instead of some of that benefit going to a driver, they're going to take everything from you instead. And so that's the part that's sad. Man, I tell you.
Not really beholden to anybody, right, other than shareholders.
So I'm going to share the rest of that clip within the chat with you guys. And also for the clip, I'll also place the video link in the description below. But when it comes to the workers, and I think this is one of the biggest issues that some people think. Some people say, oh, we shouldn't have AI at all. And some people, you know, of course, on the other side are like, oh, man, AI is cool. It's going to do so many things. And the thing is, like, I'm in between. I say, yes, I think AI is fine as long as it serves all people, not just those people who are part of the exploiter class, part of the parasite class. This is why I think AI can be useful. Like, for instance, I use AI for this channel. And I'm going to be full disclosure. Whenever I'm making my thumbnails, I have to upscale some of these photos because some of the photos of some of these people, they look terrible, or it's too blurry, or it's too grainy. And so guess what? Yeah, I use AI upscaling to make it look better. Yeah, because I want it to be clear and I wanted to you be able to see it as higher quality. But do I use AI for anything else? No, because I use it as an assistant, but not to replace me. It should be there to assist us, not replace us. And I think that delineation is worthwhile. The goal should be to make humans' lives easier, not to replace humans. And so, and yes, guess what? Make our lives easier while still paying us a living wage. Okay, so we're going to be utilizing AI, and instead of you working 8 hours for that shift, you're only working 4 hours. Okay, well, if you're working only 4 hours for that shift, all right, then double the pay. Double the pay. You're making $20 an hour and you're working 8 hours. All right, well, we're paying you $40 an hour for 4 hours. Because ultimately, it should be about the humanity, the environment, the people should matter the most. Problem is, capitalists, they don't believe in that. They want to take you out of the equation as much as possible, but they want to depend on your exploitation in order to keep propping them up. And so this is why I say hell no to Waymo, because why in the world would I embrace a system that completely replaces us? That's something I think we should take some tiki Georges and marches to. AI will not replace us. And so I'm not anti-AI and I'm not completely pro-AI. I think it should be a tool used for human benefit across the board. It should be used to assist, not replace. And it can't replace us for everything. It is impossible. And so this is why it is important for us to keep an eye. And I'm gonna be real with you. I'm going to utilize a human driver every single time. And people go, well, oh my God, it's so safe. And yeah, it's so safe until a glitch happens. Man. So this is what's happening in your city. This is happening in Orlando. If it's happening in Orlando, let me know. Do you guys see these cars in your area? Do you guys see these cars riding around? Do you see them without the drivers in them? I have saw drivers in them like once or twice, but I've seen a lot of them that do not have a driver in them at all. This future does not have to be dystopian. We just have to fight to keep it from being that way. Guys, say hell no to Waymo. All right, everybody. Thank you so very much. Please go ahead and give a like to the stream. Let me check on the Kick side to see if we have any gifted subs, and then we will check to see if we have any Rumble rants. I think we're okay on Kick. All right, we are okay on Kick. All right, perfection. And let us go to Rumble. I think we're okay on the Rumble side. Okay. No Rumble rants right now. Oh, we just got one. Never mind. Oh, man. Okay. Oh, that's a good one, too. Ooh. Woo. That's a good point. All right, so let me share a screen, and we'll get into this one. All right, thank you so very much, Mary Ploppins. Wait, why in the world? Okay, there we go. All right. Thank you very much, Mary Ploppins. Mary says, I am convinced the role of AI is to steal taxpayer money to fund it before it goes belly up. But our tax money won't be refunded. Yeah. It is privatize the gains and socialize the losses. That's basically how they operate. Yeah, you're absolutely correct on that one. That's one of the reasons why I do not like this push towards pushing humans out completely. I think we should be pushing for humans to utilize it, but in a way that benefits us completely. So yeah. All right, so let's check in the chat here. Tia says nerds forever. Yes. Nerds make the world go round. All right. Hey, Vic coming in and saying, hey, JB, good to see you, Vic. All right. Nice to have you in the chat. Let me see. Yes, Tia says precisely. Until it gets sentience, it should be used as a tool or assistant. Absolutely. Like there's this guy who has been putting AI to shame on, I think it was TikTok, and he keeps showing how flawed it is. At least I think it's OpenAI, right? I bet you Sam Altman is pulling his hair out. He's pulling his hair out so much that he's going to end up looking like Jeff Bezos by the end of the day. But these AI, they're not intelligent. All AI is just an amalgamation of information that is pulled from different sources in order to give you an answer. That's all it really is. This is why I only use it for amalgamation of information. I don't use it for anything else besides like upscaling photos. Because what good is it trying to help us figure stuff out? Like if you want to ask it, what's 16 times 7, then yeah, it can help you out with that. But it is not going to be something that does the thinking for you. Because it is not necessarily intelligent. Jacqueline says, isn't Swanson Foods the one that is connected to Tucker Carlson? Still on the food topic, I was listening to the book whilst I was making a cuppa. Yeah. So, yes. Tucker Carlson is related to the family that is created Swanson Foods. He is a Swanson, and so yes, that food empire. Yes, he is. He is related. A court lawyer says soon we will be the robot caretakers. Yeah, and in fact, instead they should be taking care of us. It should be the other way around. You see here. Roger says 6 minutes behind, but that cosmic egg seed that led to the explosion of capitalism in 1919, it applies to everything we've been talking about. Thank you very much for that. Oh my gosh, Tia. We've all been thinking it too. It will be utopian for them until Skynet starts acting out. Look, I'm gonna tell you right now, if I see this electric bubble that comes out of nowhere and then up pops out a butt naked white man, I'm running. If a buff butt naked white man comes out, I am running the opposite direction. Because I'm not going to wait for him to either aim at me, or if he extends his hand and goes, "Come with me if you want to live." I'm not waiting to know which one it is. I'm running. I'm going to be like Kyle Reese. I'm running the other direction. A box full of roses or not. If you know, you know. Oh my goodness. I'm not mad at that, Roger. Quadruple to pay? Hey. I'm not mad at that. All right. And then Jacqueline says, Sean, what if the data centers are real and what you're saying is also true? There are nuclear bunkers underneath those data centers, not for the likes of us, of course. Yeah, because he said, if you ask me, data centers are fake. They are covered for nuclear bunkers. All the water being used is to fill their reservoirs. I don't know. But sometimes I feel like we give these parasites too much credit and too much credit for intelligence. It really just is greed. And if they really want to build a bunker, they have properties where they can do it without it being an AI data center. I think that they are actually just data centers and they're just using it just to make as much money as possible. They got their bunkers someplace else. They ain't that smart. They're not that smart. They think they are. They want to believe they are, but they're not. And is this an opportunity for me to talk smack about Elon Musk? Yes, it is. Yes. Just because you're the richest guy in the room doesn't make you the smartest guy in the room. Got 13 kids by how many babies mamas? Right? He's so smart, but he can't keep a woman. And he can't keep her happy. All that money and you can't keep a woman happy? Oh, that says something about you, Elon. Hell, you can't even keep a good relationship with your daughter all because she's trans. You got all them sons and you're mad because one of your kids is trans? That is what you call conditional love. Not unconditional, conditional. Oh my goodness, what a loser. Anywho, Yeah, Tia. If it looks like a T1000, run. Yes. I said T800s because, that was what the first movie was. T1000s, yeah, I'm going to Mars. All right, guys, let's get into the final one. Because I do think, okay, yeah, I want to make sure I get to this. Because I have a lot of information that I want to share in the final segment, and we got to go. This is going to be a lot. Okay. So let me make sure I have everything. Yeah, I got everything. Okay. All right. So, of course, we talked about foods that are banned, right? And then we got on to about Waymo and how they're really going to be taking away foods. I'm sorry, Waymo, how they're going to be taking away jobs. And those jobs are really going to be, jobs that drivers could have kept, but instead they wanted to give the money and skip the worker and give it straight to people who are what they call the captains of industry, right? But now we're going to be getting into what's going on with Iran, China, and Spain. We're going to be talking about that because if I were Donald Trump, I'd be mad. I would be so mad. All right. Make sure. Okay. Let me make sure I have all that ready. This is why I really do need a producer. There's a lot here. There's a lot here. But alas, I can't afford one right now. But it is okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to start off there, and then we shall get into this. So, of course, we're going to be talking about how Donald Trump has been clowned and he's been owned. And so now we're going to be getting into multipolar. And yes, he looks like a clown. Let's get into this, y'all. Let's get into it. China has defied the U.S. and the blockade against the Strait of Hormuz. And also they are pushing for a more multipolar world to the likes of which no one has ever seen. Grab your popcorn, guys, because China and Spain really just gave the middle finger to Trump. And it's not even funny. Like, they are essentially showing Donald Trump like what a multipolar world could look like. And it makes Trump look awful. This is the hottest country on earth and we're so well respected. No, it's clownish. And let's get into this because I really want to share this with you guys. So we're going to actually get into how this is going. So we're going to start here. So this starts here. So of course, there was a block in the Strait of Hormuz. And because Pakistan basically essentially said, hey, we know there's a block on the Strait of Hormuz. this is not going to be good for the rest of us. So what we're going to do is we're going to get Iran and the United States at the table in order to make negotiations so that we can reopen the Strait of Hormuz, so that we can stop this war, so that we can have the world spinning again. But JD Vance had came up empty-handed. So, says JD Vance says talks failed due to Iran's refusal to give up nuclear program. Iranian delegates in Islamabad say Washington needs to do more to win their trust if talks to resolve in the U.S.-Iran conflict are to be successful. So let's get into this. So it says JD Vance has blamed the U.S. failure. I'm sorry, JD Vance has blamed the failure of marathon negotiations with Iran on the country's refusal to abandon its nuclear weapons program, while Iranian delegates have claimed Washington needs to do more to win their trust. Now, when you ask, need to do more to win their trust, what does that mean? Here's the problem. Like, who started this war? The 12-day war last year was started by U.S. and Israel. The war that started on February 28th was started by U.S. and Israel. Iran didn't start nothing. And people go, oh, well, they're trying to develop a nuclear weapon. No, they weren't. There was a religious fatwa that basically deemed that they should not and cannot produce a nuclear weapon at all. And that's not what they were trying to do. They were actually trying to do it for human, excuse me, they were trying to do it for civilian purposes. They wanted nuclear power plants in order to be able to power their homes, right, and businesses. That was it. But the United States kept on, oh my God, they're trying to build a nuclear weapon. And if they are, guess what? I mean, look at what Israel has been doing. Israel is a nuclear threat within the region. Let's let logic play into this. If Israel is a nuclear threat, a deterrent technically would deter Israel from doing anything to Iran like they have been doing. But Iran, just by principle, didn't want to have one. And so because the United States and Israel are the ones that started the fight, and they continue to bombard not just Gaza, but also Lebanon, and they're still killing and murdering Lebanese people as we speak, including Christians, by the way. They decided to go after Iran, and Iran's like, we don't know if we can trust you, because every single time we have tried to have talks with you guys and negotiate with you guys, we will come to the table, and while we're at the negotiating table, you start bombing our countries or our allies' countries once again. So therefore, we cannot trust y'all. You cannot be trusted. And also, they study our history. They saw what the United States have done to other groups, especially the Native Americans, where the United States has either violated treaties or completely just went and violated portions of treaties in order to maintain control. It was never mutually beneficial. It was always one-sided with the United States. So, of course, if you and I supposedly have an agreement, but I keep seeing you violate the agreement. Let's say you and somebody else have an agreement with each other, and you keep violating the agreement you have with that other person. Of course, I would look on and go, wait, this person can't be trusted. And then you violate the agreement with me a couple of times. Well, guess what? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. Well, I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment. And Iran's basically saying, yeah, no, we don't trust you. We're not going to go by your word anymore. And so this is what's happening. So let's continue on. It says Vance, who left Islamabad on Sunday morning after 21 hours of talks with Iranian officials in the Pakistani capital, said his team has been very clear on its red lines and hopes faded to a quick end to a conflict that began on 28th of February. The vice president said that he spoke with Donald Trump at least a half a dozen times in the talks. And one of the most significant points of difference between the two sides was on Iran's nuclear program. Now, this is what J.D. Vance said. He said, we need an affirmative commitment that Iran will not seek a nuclear weapon and that they will not seek the tools that will enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. This is what the core goal of the President of the United States. And this is what we have tried to achieve through these negotiations. Now, let me ask you this. Why does the United States not want Iran to have a nuclear weapon? Now, they will say it's because they want to protect other allies in the region. Particularly, they want to protect Israel in the region. As if Iran would use a nuclear weapon on a civilian population. You know who has used a nuclear weapon on a civilian population? The United States. They did it on 2 cities. It was Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. No other nation has ever used a nuclear weapon on a civilian population except for the United States. So, by that metric, by that logic, that means the person who, or the country that is the most dangerous would be the one that has used nuclear weapons before. And who has used nuclear weapons before? Wouldn't it be the United States? And how often does Iran attack Israel? They don't, unless they have to clap back. And this time around, Israel's mouth wrote a check that its ass couldn't cash. Because they're used to just bombing a defenseless group in Gaza. They decided to pick on somebody their own size. Guess what? They get their asses they get their shit rocked. And this is exactly what happened. Because now they're going up against a country with a formal military. With a country that's 10 times the population of theirs. Israel has about 9 million people. Iran has over 90 million people. That means that Israel, they got a nuke, but every accusation is a confession. Because the people that should be afraid of having a nuclear weapon in the region, it should be Iran, which they know Israel has a nuke. So it should be that the argument should be that Israel should be getting rid of its nuclear weapon. But it's not. They want to argue that Iran shouldn't have it. And I'm going to tell you why. What if it was discovered that North Korea had a massive oil reserves under their feet? What could the United States do in order to get to those oil reserves under North Korea's feet if they found out North Korea has a ton of oil? They couldn't do a damn thing. Look, let me make it closer for y'all. They couldn't do a damn thing because they literally have a nuclear weapon. And this is why the United States is afraid, because if Iran had it, that's a deterrent from them taking their oil from them. If Venezuela had a nuke, that would also be a deterrent. I'm being real with you. If Venezuela had a nuke, Maduro would not be in prison in the United States. I'm just stating facts here. That's a scenario. This is why the United States has not done any formal wars against DPRK. Because they have a big stick. And this is why the United States is like, oh no, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, because if Iran did, they could not try to take them over, do regime change, and take their oil. Because they dare not. Because nuclear deterrence also work on nuclear superpowers. Now, Vance added that while the failure to reach an agreement in Islamabad was, quote unquote, bad news, it was, quote, bad news for Iran much more than it is bad news for the United States of America, end quote. Says Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who led Iran in the negotiations, said although he and his colleagues had offered constructive initiatives, U.S. has been unable to gain the trust of the Iranian delegation in this round of negotiations. He said it was now up to Washington to decide whether it can gain our trust or not. It says the country's foreign ministry downplayed the apparent breakdown of the talks, saying that no one has held any expectation that they would reach an agreement with one session. Of course, they said that. He said Tehran was confident that the talks between us and Pakistan, as well as other friends in the region, will continue. Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency said excessive U.S. demands had hindered such reaching agreement. Washington and Iran's both had said that that what will happen after the 14-day ceasefire initially agreed to by the U.S., Iran, and Israel, but Pakistani mediators called on the U.S. and Iran to refrain from renewing hostilities. So who were at these meetings? J.D. Vance, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, met Ghalibaf and the Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi for 2 hours before arrest, according to Pakistani source. Now, they murdered the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and others in the war. Now, the Iranian delegation said they carried shoes and bags of children killed during the bombing of a school next to a military compound. The Iranian government said the Pentagon has said the strikes is under investigation, but Reuters has reported that military investigators believe the U.S. was probably responsible for it. Yes, it was a United States Tomahawk missile that actually went into that all-girls school in Manab. So, yeah, they can't trust them. But anyways, so this is what happened first, okay? And in doing so, there was something that happened after that. So Donald Trump decided to block the Strait of Hormuz. And so I just want to bring up, now shout out to Iran and Ghana. They posted Trump's post from the Truth Social. He said, Iran's navy is laying at the bottom of the sea, completely obliterated 158 ships. What we have not hit are their small number of what they call fast attack ships because we did not consider them much of a threat. Warning, if any of those ships come anywhere close to our blockade, they will be immediately eliminated using the same system of kill that we used against the drug dealers on boats at sea. It is quick and brutal. P.S. 98.2% of drugs coming into the U.S. by ocean or sea have stopped. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Okay, so interesting questions by Iran and Ghana. They said, he says he sank 158 Iranian ships. Let's assume that's true. Then who is closing the strait? Who turned your destroyer around with a phone call? Who forced 21 hours of failed talks? Who made you stand outside of a locked building and announce you're the one who closed it? You either lied about the 158 or you just admitted Iran doesn't even need a navy to lock you out. Choose whichever answer lets you sleep tonight. The strait will be closed in the morning. And so they said there will be no ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz because of course, Iran said if you are against the United States with this aggression and this war of attrition against us, then basically get rid of these diplomatic relations that you have with the United States, and then hey, you can come through the Strait of Hormuz. You guys can do that. You guys can pass through. Spain said, what U.S., what Israeli delegation? Let us through. Let us come in through. Come on down. And guess what? Spain was allowed to have ships come through the Strait of Hormuz. China was allowed because China was like, hey, we don't want no part of this. We like U.S., Israel, y'all can go someplace else. We need our fuel. We need our oil. And plus, basically, China was like, we cool with Iran. Now, I'm going to show you guys this because Tom Cotton said this as well. Yes. So Tom Cotton has to say this about closing the Strait of Hormuz.
China really needs to engage here on Iran, a terrorist state trying to close the Strait of Hormuz, because China gets the lion's share of the oil coming out of the Middle East. Now that we've imposed a blockade on the strait on all ships, if all ships don't get out, China is really the one that's going to face the brunt of the pain.
And that means if China sends a tanker in, they're going to be told, turn around, you can wait here, but you're not going forward. This is a stare down.
Yeah, it's really akin to what we've done with Venezuela for several months. The president's point is very simple to Iran. Either all ships come out or no ships come out. And the United States military can easily impose those conditions on the strait. And remember, that's where Iran gets the vast majority of its revenue and how it supports its military and its terrorist proxies throughout the region. So this puts them now not just in a military vice, but in an economic vice.
So they said, if we can't have it open, nobody can. Now, hold on to that. Hold on to it. Because the United States got clowned. Okay? Baby, baby, baby. Let's get into this, y'all. I want to share this. Shout out to Job Site News for this. It says a Chinese-owned tanker, Rich Starry, has completed its transit through the Strait of Hormuz despite the U.S. blockade, according to Kepler data. The vessel flying a Malawi flag departed Sharjah in the UAE fully loaded and is headed towards China. It has turned back the previous day, but has resumed its journey entering the Gulf of Oman. So, let's take a look at this, right? And it says you can track her live location here. So, vessel Rich Starry that turned away from the Strait of Hormuz yesterday on April 13th has now made a successful crossing based on data from Kepler. Here's the past track image via marine traffic from earlier today on April 14th, right? That's today, by the way. And here is them going through the Strait of Hormuz, despite the U.S. blockade. So they said, screw your blockade, we going through anyway. The United States has egg on its face. It's not looking good for them. I mean, my goodness, this is embarrassing. One little ship. They couldn't stop one little ship? My goodness. So here's another thing, right? The Strait of Hormuz is about like 20 some odd miles across at its narrowest point. That being said, according to international law, the country has territory, I think 12 miles up to 12 miles off its coast. And so because it has that much coverage, that many miles off its coast, any country that goes through the Strait of Hormuz essentially has to abide by Iranian law because they're in Iranian waters, right? And so because they're in Iranian waters, they have the sovereignty and self-determination to determine what and who comes through that strait. And because they have that self-determination, it is within their right to tell people how much, who can and can't come through. So the Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles at its narrowest point. And so because it's 21 miles at its narrowest point, I think, let me see, make sure that I can see this. So yeah, Oman is right there at the most narrowest point. So Oman can do 12 miles and then Iran can do 12 miles. But it's only 21 miles, which means that even if they go straight through the middle, they're still subject to law by Iran. And so I'm going to share this. We're just going to look at this just for a little bit, because corporate media tries to paint this as they try to paint it as the United States is trying to make it so that, you know, this is beneficial for everybody, when in reality they just really want it to be beneficial for them. So let's go.
It started its naval blockade yesterday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We're around 17 hours in. And basically, a lot of the traffic, the little trickle we've seen since the start of the war, has come to a screeching halt, apart from one incident. And this is really interesting because this is a Chinese-owned vessel. It's now said to have tested the U.S. naval blockade because it has passed through the Strait of Hormuz. Let's take you through this. This is a rich starry. This is a tanker said to be carrying methanol. It started moving from Sharjah here in the UAE. Remember, a lot of these vessels turn off the AIS transponder, so you don't really know the origin of which port that they moved from. Starting to move towards Keshem and Larak Islands, then, you know, starts a boating mission, moves back, and then starts to take that route once again, passing through the strait in the early hours of this morning. Now, this is a tanker that has been sanctioned since March 2023 by the U.S. Treasury Department because it has links to Iran. Now, from what we understand from experts, this tanker was able to move through completely unfazed by the U.S. naval blockade. So we don't know what exactly transpired and how the United States is enforcing this blockade. But this is really interesting to see this tanker that has links to Iran, that has been sanctioned by the United States, being able to move through the Strait of Hormuz at this.
If you're not actually enforcing the blockade, then it's just a bluff. Because China basically said, if you touch something that's ours, you're going to face consequences. And I'm going to tell you right now, don't fuck with China. They're saying, do not touch our stuff. And I'm going to be real with you. China don't play. They have been very measured. And if they've been very measured, then you just need to just leave them alone. If they're not harming you, leave them alone. And the United States keeps wanting to do this. Why? Because United States wants a proxy. They not a proxy, but they want a puppet in China. They want to get rid of the CPC, the Communist Party of China. They want to replace it with a completely capitalist system, so that they can take all the resources out of China for either cheap or free. And China has one of the highest amounts of rare earth minerals, which also is important for military technology. And so because they have all these rare earths, these big corporations like Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, they want these rare earths, but you have to go through China in order to get them, because China has them, right? In huge quantities. And so the United States is like, hey, in order to be able to have more military dominance, we need to control China. But China is like, no, it is ruled by the people. And there's nothing you can do about it. And so it's interesting because this multipolar system that is being built from the ground up, it is also being fostered by big countries like China. And as we see with China, I'm telling you right now, don't mess with them, because they haven't been messing with us militarily, and they just been doing their thing. And it's going to fare for us very badly. And this is why it's important that we stay away from, China in that regard. Because China is basically saying, no, you're not going to touch what's ours. Let me share with you guys this as well. Because I don't want to miss this part. This is from antiwar.com. Shout out to David DeCamp and the people at antiwar.com. They do really great reporting out of there. I highly recommend you guys follow antiwar.com. But this is from David DeCamp. Says Trump says U.S. military has started a blockade on the Iranian ports and as Iran calls it, piracy. So of course, it says President Trump on Monday that the U.S. military has begun enforcing a blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran has denounced it as moves of piracy. U.S. CENTCOM, Central Command, said that the blockade will aim to impede the passage of all ships entering or leaving Iranian ports, including those in the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Oman. U.S. Navy ships will be enforcing the blockade from the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea east of the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM also said it wouldn't block ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz that aren't linked to Iran, but such vessels will likely be blocked by Iran anyway, meaning that the U.S. will move to have the effect of shutting down all transits through the strait. Iran's military released a statement calling the U.S. blockade illegal and warning if the security of ports of Iran are threatened, no port in the region will be safe. So here's the thing, right? How are you going to place a blockade on a strait that doesn't belong to you? It doesn't belong to you. So therefore, you have no right to block that area. Right? It's theirs. And if they want to negotiate how things are ran over there, that's their prerogative. By international law, that's their prerogative. They have prerogative of up to 12 miles out from their coast. And guess what? It is a 21-mile width of the narrowest part of the Strait of Hormuz. So they got 21 miles out, and Oman got 21 miles out. I'm sorry, 12 miles out, and Oman got 12 miles out. So guess what? There's a part of that area where they overlap. And so Iran's like, hey, yeah, no, you're not going to do that. And yet they still keep trying. They still keep trying to dictate the terms of what sovereignty, they try to take away the sovereignty of Iran. And Iran's basically saying, hell no, you don't. Don't you think about it. And even China is basically saying, yeah, you need to obey international law. But China, they have good relations with them. So let me share this as well. Make sure I have this. I think this is the correct one. Okay. So this just happened recently. So it says breaking. Trump gets massive shock from China. A big victory for Spain. Pedro Sanchez. Trump says we will cut all trade ties with Spain because they didn't support me against Iran. Yes, like I said, Spain didn't. Exactly after 36 hours, Xi Jinping, the president of China, says Spain is standing on the right side of history and it is a very reasonable country. China stands with Spain. We will work towards world peace and oppose the law of the jungle. Trump and Netanyahu will have heartburn seeing this. And this is basically Xi Jinping. I think he's speaking all in Chinese. And so, but I just want to share this with you guys. So as we can see here, look, Trump really messed up because now you have a European nation that is going against the Western hegemony of the United, especially that's controlled by the United States, in order really to start the embrace of a multipolar world, which means that the United States control over many regions, especially the control over the dollar, over the petrodollar, is now going to be weakened even further because now you have a European state that's doing it. And they're literally dipping their toe in the multipolar world. And now this is going to be a sign to the other European nations, hey, they're not going to do a damn thing. Let's go and team up with the multipolar world because it is not going to fare as badly for us as we think. Now, remember, right? Germany was getting a lot of their LNG, their liquefied natural gas. They were getting that from Russia for relatively low cost. But it was the United States that destroyed the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And of course, they made it so that European nations cannot, especially Germany, cannot have any type of fuel from Russia. And they basically said, well, if you're going to get fuel to heat your homes, then you guys have to get it from the United States. And the United States starts charging them more. And then Germany ends up being the cuck that it is, the cuck nation, right? And so they end up going, okay, well, we'll start taking it from you, but they're spending way more for energy with the United States than they would be with Russia. And so now Germany is basically saying, and Friedrich Merz, Prime Minister of Germany, is basically saying, well, Germans are going to have to tighten their belts more because we need this money for, you got the war in Ukraine that they're helping to supply for, and then the energy costs are going through the roof. And so then they are going to be starting to cut a lot of their social programs, because remember, Germany's supposed to be a social democracy, but guess what? Because they're making all those cuts, it's not going to be as much of a social democracy as it was before. And so now Germany's realizing, hey, the United States is actually really bad for us. Maybe, just maybe, because they're going to be looking at Spain and going, Spain is going to be working out a lot better with their relationship with China. Maybe this multipolar world thing will actually fare better for us than sticking with the United States. And this is going to be the test for a lot of the countries in the European Union. I think the last country standing will be the UK, Britain, because Britain is tied to the hip of the United States. And the thing is, like, will they defy this this U.S. hegemony? Will they defy it? I certainly hope so, but I'm not holding my breath, right? And so looking at this and looking at what the United States is going through, because really they can't do nothing. I mean, you try invading somebody's home and then they're defending their home and their land to the death. They're going to fight way harder than you ever will for land that doesn't belong to you. And so this is what's going on with Iran. This is the exact same thing that was going on with the Palestinian resistance when they were fighting against Israelis on the ground. If you put Palestinian resistance against Israelis on the ground on a 1-1v1, guess what? The Palestinian resistance is going to win every single time. You got dudes in Adidas leisure suits and sandals that are beating the pants off of IOF soldiers on the ground. And these IOF soldiers are literally wearing diapers. They literally have to wear diapers. So the diaper brigade can't do nothing but drop bombs. That's all they have. They can just level the entire area, but that's all they're good at. They can't do actual warfare on the ground. This is why they are always in planes, because they need to have their safe spaces. And so this is why, hell, look at what happened in the Red Sea with Ansar Allah. They call them the Houthis, but it's Ansar Allah. Look at what they did. They kept all these vessels, including U.S. vessels, out from the Red Sea and said, hey, y'all not moving one more inch as long as you guys continue to do this genocide against the Palestinians. So if they can't guard against them, if they can't guard against Hezbollah, if they can't defend against them in Lebanon, what makes you think you're going to be able to do that against a country of 90 million people, along with not just 90 million people, but their recruitments are up. Military recruitment has jumped. And the president of Iran, by the way, Iran is a democracy. The president of Iran even enlisted himself. Like the president of Iran enlisted in the military? Meanwhile, you got Donald Trump eating cheeseburgers from McDonald's and some stage DoorDash delivery, and he won't even tell Barron to, hey, it looks like you're going to have to go to West Point. Looks like you're going to have to fight for the country, boy. You're 20 years old. You be a perfect soldier. Hey, you like 7 foot tall over here, looking like one of them giants from Game of Thrones. You go fight. No, he wouldn't dare. He wouldn't dare have him do any of that. And yet you got the president of Iran enlisting in the military. Even though he already served, he's like, well, I'm ready. I'll serve again. Crazy. So these are some of the things that a lot of people aren't taking into account. Iran is like, no, we will defend our land. And that's what they're about. Now, here is the president, Pedro Sanchez, the prime minister of Spain. Here's what he had to say. Today, with President Xi Jinping, I have confirmed that the bond between Spain and China emerges strengthened following this official trip. In a world that is increasingly uncertain, Spain is betting on a EU-China relationship based on trust, dialogue, and stability. We must continue advancing towards a multipolar order built from respect and pragmatism. So now you have Spain leading the charge and saying, we will be a European nation that has good relations with China, and we are ready for a multipolar world. None of this, no more of this Western dominance, no more of this unipolar world, but the United States treats us like a vassal, and then we're just there on bended knee to serve them and their Yankee ass interests. We're going to have something that benefits all of us instead. And so guess what? China's like, give it to me, baby. You know, come on in. And this is the start. This is the shot across the bow. This is it. In fact, I'll show you guys a photo. Pedro Sanchez was like, hey, look. You know what this picture says? This picture reminds me of a song. Friends. How many of us have them? Friends. Ones we can't depend on. That's what this is, you know. The unipolar world is done. It's gone. It's done. Because people are now seeing the United States for what it really is. The mask is off. I'm gonna share this with you guys too. Because he literally went to a tour through China. You know, top Spanish official. Shout out to Ling Jingjing. She does great work, you know, on her channel. I would love to have her on one day. She is a great geopolitical geopolitical analyst in independent media. She's out of China. She does a wonderful job. Please make sure to subscribe to her channel if you have not already. But yes, she said Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez took a tour of Xiaomi, guided by the CEO, Lei Jun himself. He tried electric vehicles, EVs, mobile phones, and all the smart devices. I added English subtitles to the video published by Xiaomi. Hope this can help you understand what they said. Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Lee. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. Let's take a look. Okay, Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to Xiaomi. I'm very happy to be here. He said, we at Xiaomi, we've been entering Spanish market. Our main products are smartphones, smart electric cars, smart electric cars, and smart devices.
整个智能设备，像这么100
A 100-inch TV like that. A 100-inch TV.
寸的电视大概相当于一个双人床的大小，定价大概在
Price is about
15000块人民币。
15,000 yuan, about $2,000 US. Hold up. A 100-inch TV for $2,000? 100 inch. I know size doesn't matter all the time, but woo! $2,000.
2000元美金左右，这是我们刚发布的新款的
Xiaomi Su7.
小米苏7，这是去年20万
It was our best-selling car, over 200,000
以上的轿车的销量冠军。
champion of cars.
纯电动的，
It's purely electric.
它的续航
It
高
has range up to 902 kilometers.
达902公里，在中国的测试工况
In China's test condition,
下，智能化程度很。
it's highly intelligent. How much is 900 kilometers? Let me see. Let me see. 900 kilometers to miles. How much is that? 559 miles. So about 560 miles. 560 miles, is that on a single charge? That's pretty damn good. That means if you're traveling from here to New York, that means you would only need to, if your car is fully charged when you leave here in Orlando, by the time you get to North Carolina, by the time you hit Virginia, you would need to recharge. Probably by the time you get to Virginia. Yeah. No. By the time you get to North Carolina, you would need to recharge. That's it. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Just one recharge, full recharge by the time you get to North Carolina. That's crazy, man. That's wild. Let's continue.
激光雷达，
It has LiDAR.
全部带了激光雷达的，而且呢，前
And the trunk is also
备箱
electric.
也是电动的，你看。 这辆车也特别有特点，
So this car is also distinctive. It says on the Nuremberg in Germany.
在德国的纽北赛道上的话，目前这是
It is currently the fastest
最快的量产电
electric vehicle on the
动
track.
车。这边呢是我们发布的第一
SUV we
辆
have.
SUV，只要你带了手机，
As
手
long as you bring your phone is connected to the screen,
机就跟屏幕完全连在一起
completely
了。
connected. 3 eyes on one.
手机呢是我
Easy to use. Mobile phones are our core
们
business.
最核心的业务。我们目前在西班牙手机业务是排名
Our
第一的
mobile。phone business is ranked first. I'm going to mute it just so that it's no background noise so you guys can hear me more better. It says this is our most advanced phone. It is It says collaboration with Leica. It takes great photos, of course. It says open the air conditioner. Open the curtains. Wow. So all the devices in the whole home can be controlled by voice. It said this is our smart glasses. Can it connect to other devices, he asks. Yes, it can. Wow. We have grown up like this. Last year, our revenue was over 450 billion. Because of these electric vehicle has a huge battery pack. So they put this battery pack and the chassis, in the chassis of the entire system are integrated together. The safety of the whole vehicle is the battery. Yes. The safety of the whole vehicle and strength have also been greatly improved. Check it together. Wow. So yeah, the Spanish Prime Minister checking it out. You know, I mean, that's pretty amazing. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like all this stuff that's happening is going to tear the West apart, particularly the United States. This issue with Iran is going to tear the United States apart. And I think we really should be reconsidering this system because it is going to destroy us before the multipolar world is ever damaged. And who could have predicted this? There's one person who did. This person predicted this before his death. Charlie Kirk. Let's listen to what Charlie Kirk said.
I don't think we should bomb Iranian nuclear facilities. I just don't. I think it'd be a huge mistake. It's an act of war against a major country. You go to war with Persia, it will bring your country down. The American people did not rise up in major numbers because we want war with Iran. That was never part of the deal. Okay, it was never like, hey, America first, comma, we're going to go do a bunch of targeted strikes on the inland of Iran. So that's just where I would say that would be a catastrophic mistake. I'm resolutely America first. I think that our own borders matter a lot more than the borders of a foreign country, and I think it's a long past time that our leaders would start to prioritize the well-being of our own citizens, not those of foreign nations. Not that crazy of a concept, right? We have so many pressing problems at home, and our leaders are internationally obsessed, and they are domestically ignorant.
Internationally obsessed and domestically ignorant. You want to talk about domestic ignorance? Let's talk about how it is, how can you afford your rent or mortgage? Want to talk about domestic ignorance, how disconnected our leaders, because they're not really our leaders, they're just people that are put up by the Epstein class, but how disconnected our leaders are when it comes to how much we're paying for our electric bills, and yet they still want to build more data centers, right? How disconnected are our leaders when it comes to jobs? They do not want to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. They want to make it easier for shareholders to extract more profits from the workers. And then they sit here scratching their heads and wondering, well, why aren't these workers making more money so they can afford our products? Well, because you're not paying us enough to do it. It's like, yeah, you got a big old yacht, but also your sales are going down because we can't afford nothing. And so that's part of the problem. And to dissect and know exactly why all this stuff matters, I think it's important that we get a great explanation as to why. We need something that's simple and concise to be able to do this. And there's somebody that actually explained all this in a very neat package, and then she tied it with a bow. This auntie done explained it in such a simple way that, hell, if you were to take my IQ and drop it by like half, I'd still be able to understand exactly what she told me. So she basically sums it up for all of us. And this is why this is so important. This is why you need to know what is going on, because it is affecting you at home. So let's go here. All right. Semitic Jew said, Grandma told no lies. I'm going to say auntie because she's old enough to be my auntie. All right, so she's going to explain it. And guys, hold on to your hats because it is going to be very clear as to how she explains it. Most Americans have no idea this is happening. Let's go.
All right, now sit down for a minute, because see this right here? This ain't just another headline that you want to scroll past. What's happening around the Strait of Hormuz? See, that's not random. That's pressure. And Iran knows exactly what it's doing. They're basically saying if oil moves through here, it's not going to be paid for in US dollars anymore. It's going to be paid in Chinese yuan. Now listen, that might sound like small talk to some folks, but it's not. It's a big deal. And here's the part that they don't explain to regular Joe Blow folks like me and you. Because if they did, we would start asking better questions than we're asking, right? The United States dollar didn't just become the world's main currency because everybody admired America. No, ma'am, no, sir. That was arranged. Back in 1971, Nixon printed more money than the gold we could support, mostly to pay for the Vietnam War. So he cut the dollar loose from gold completely. Now that created a problem, because if your money isn't backed by gold anymore, why should the world keep trusting it?
First of all, hang on. Y'all might need to give this auntie a early applause. But here's the thing, right? In order to pay for the Vietnam War, because wars are expensive, right? And on top of that, why is a dollar worth a dollar? Mostly because we believe collectively that a dollar is worth a dollar. It's based on what we think it is, not what it actually is worth. It's not based on anything outside of that besides what we think the price of oil should be. If you think oil should be $100 a barrel, then that's what they're going to charge. And then based on that, then they're going to charge you based on per gallon and all that. But it's basically worth whatever we deem it to be worth. And we base our supply and demand based off of that. And then prices go up or go down based on, the type of oil that we get. It could be light crude, medium crude, heavy crude. It could be sweet crude. It could be whatever, it is. What is best processed as, how universal it is in order to be able to process the products that it can be made from, they're derived from. Is not just gasoline. It can also be derived, to make different plastics and polymers, things like that, right? Also, some of the byproducts are also made, into fertilizer, things like that. So these are important. And so people base the prices based off of the opinion of how much you think it should be. Or what the Epstein class thinks it should be, because they want more money.
In it. So in 1974, same year I came out of high school, the United States made a deal with Saudi Arabia. You sell your oil in US dollars and we'll protect you militarily. And just like that, the system was set. Okay?
Militarily from whom, though? Militarily from whom? Because what's funny, I noticed? I never, ever, ever see Israel going after Saudi Arabia. By the way, Saudi Arabia is not a democracy. And in fact, man, I should have linked it here. But in a report by Ben Norton from Geopolitical Economy Report, we realize that 90% of the people that live in these Gulf states, particularly ones like Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, 90% of the people that live there are not even citizens. They are foreigners that are doing domestic work, that are just trying to be able to make it. So most people aren't even citizens. And because they're not citizens, they do not have any power. Which means that the leaders, the families of the Gulf states, basically are monarchies, dictatorships. So the people who live there don't really have a say over how their government operates. Yet Iran is a democracy. But the United States said they're trying to spread democracy abroad. But Iran is a democracy. Saudi Arabia isn't. And if you want to talk about oppression, just ask people in Saudi Arabia what is allowed and what isn't allowed. So that's the crazy part. Because how often do you see Israel trying to go after Saudi Arabia? Auntie, please continue.
After that, every country that needed oil had to get dollars first. And that's what kept the United States dollar on top. It wasn't just strong, it was necessary. Now bring it back to what's happening today. The Strait of Hormuz is where about 20% of the world's oil passes through every single day. So when that gets disrupted, it doesn't stay over there. It hits everybody. Now Iran is saying, we'll sell the oil, but not in dollars. That right there, that's not a small change. That is a direct hit to the system that's been running for over 50 years.
Boom, that right there. This is why the United States is afraid of Iran, because if Iran had a nuclear weapon, guess what? That's nuclear deterrence, which means that the United States could not tell Iran what they could do with their own damn country, meaning they could not tell them what to do with their oil. Meaning that, let's say hypothetically, let's go back to 1953, when they still had Mohammad Mossadegh as the prime minister, the president of Iran. And let's say Mohammad Mossadegh actually had a nuclear weapon at that time. There would probably have never been an Iranian revolution in the first place. And Iran would be a left-wing government where the oil is owned by the people, and Iran would be a very wealthy country. Very wealthy. But it's also a democracy. And all that money would be evenly distributed among all the Iranians there. And you wouldn't have the United States or BP Britain trying to control what goes in and what goes out and who owns what out of there. And so ultimately, this isn't because they think Iran will use a nuclear weapon against any one of these nations. It's because they're afraid that Iran would have a nuclear weapon that would deter them from being able to take over the country in order to take their oil by force. That's what it's about. Follow the money. It's all about being able to extract those resources. That's why they don't want Iran to have a nuke. That's why they don't want them to even come anywhere close to having a nuclear weapon, because they want what's under the Iranians' feet, even though it does not belong to them. Ooh, once you start to connect the dots, baby, and then our young people are going to be dying abroad for that reason. Oh my gosh.
Because now countries like China, India, Japan, South Korea, the ones buying that oil, they don't need dollars the same way anymore.
Nope.
And if they don't need dollars, they stop holding as many.
Yep.
They stop buying as many. They start shifting to other currencies. Got that? And once that starts happening, the whole system starts to crack.
Because if the US dollar is no longer the global reserve currency and we're over $30 trillion in debt, palms have to be greased. That debt doesn't go away. So guess what? If the US dollar no longer is the global reserve currency, that means the United States goes bankrupt. This is why they're continuing to do wars everywhere, because they need to keep the US dollar as the global reserve currency to keep us wealthy and rich. And the only way we're able to pay for that $1.5 trillion military spending, that spending that goes to Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and all these other big military contracting corporations is because we can spend on this, what we call the black card. It is the black, it's proverbially the American Express black card, where it has an unlimited spending limit. But guess what? That black card is about to be revoked. And all that money that you spent on that unlimited card, guess what? Now you got to pay it back. Got to pay the piper. Because now all these countries are going, hey, we don't need the global reserve currency anymore, because Iran is now saying, hey, we can pay for it in Chinese yuan. And China is not going to be holding us up at the barrel of a gun or a warship in order to have good relations with us. And they're not going to try to extract our resources like the United States is. So they're more friendly. We're going to go with them. It's easier. And Spain caught up to this. They were like, we're not going to be a vassal state anymore. Nah, we're going to have friendly relations with China now. They're like, hey, China, where you been at, man? Come on, let's go. Hola, hermano. ¿Cómo estás? This is exactly what's going on, man. Woo, I love the way she explains it. Let's go, Auntie. Let's finish up.
Now, here's where it gets real. The United States is already deep in debt.
Yep.
And right now, we're paying more in interest on that debt than we are on military.
Now, those of y'all that got student loans, y'all know about paying on that interest, but nothing goes to the principal. Y'all know something about that, right? Y'all know how that feels? Well, guess what? The United States is in the same boat. It's bad out there, y'all. It's bad.
Let that sink in. This year alone, the government has to refinance trillions of dollars. So if interest rates go up even a little, that cost's going to go through the roof. It's going to explode. The only reason we've been able to carry that kind of debt is because the world kept needing dollars for oil. See, that was the trick, right? But if oil doesn't require dollars anymore, that demand weakens. And when that demand weakens, everything starts to shift. So no, this isn't just about conflict. This isn't just about politics. This is about money, power, control. This is a financial fight. And if we're being honest, the United States don't look so ready for what's about to come next.
It's going to get bad for the West. You want to know why? Because the United States backed themselves into a corner. The United States wrote a check that its ass couldn't cash. Go ahead and give a like to the stream, y'all. That was an explanation that just simple. It was like good mac and cheese, good baked mac and cheese. You don't need to add nothing, just right there, boom. That's how good that explanation was. All right, let's get into the kick. Let me check the kick chat, and then we'll check see if we have any Rumble rants, and if we then we'll move on. Okay, we're good on kick. Gravy. Let's go to Rumble. See if we have any Rumble rants. Make sure. Okay, so I see one right there. Okay, so we do have a Rumble rant. All right, and let's. This is a great point. I would love to have Scott Ritter on. Let me see. So Mary Ploppins, thank you very much. She said, Scott Ritter said it best. The U.S. didn't go into Iraq because they had WMDs or weapons of mass destruction. We went in because they didn't. Boom, right there. We went in because they didn't. Do you really think that the United States will be going in and trying? Do you think a girls' school would have been bombed in Minab if Iran had a nuclear weapon? That's like robbing somebody's house, trying to rob somebody's house when you know they're strapped. You wouldn't be going into that house if you knew they were strapped. Especially if you know they're home, they always watch it. Man, you wouldn't go into that house. You go into the house, you try to rob it if you know they're not strapped and you know they're not home. But if you know they're always home and they're always strapped, you know not to go into that house. It's just, we gotta, it's just straight up common sense. And this is why I love my audience, because y'all just use common sense. And I wish that was common, and especially within our government, but it's not. Jacqueline says our nukes did act against a deterrent against Russia and China. Our nukes act as a deterrent against us. Yeah. Hang on. Tia Wheeler says, I just saw something from the Middle East side that said that Israel isn't treating Holocaust survivors right, as many are poor and homeless. Rightfully, no sympathy was given. Yeah, no, they don't. Like the Israeli government, at the very least, they do not care about Holocaust survivors. Also, while we're talking about it, it was 12 million people that were killed in the Holocaust, or between 11 and 12 million people. Half of them were Jewish. You know what the other half were? There were other Germans that were neurally spicy, right? Things with ADHD, autism, ones with intellectual disabilities. They had disabled. They had LGBTQ Germans. They had Jehovah's Witnesses that were also included. And people were like, Jehovah's Witnesses? Yes, the Jehovah's Witnesses actually had the purple triangle. LGBTQ people had the pink triangle, and the Jewish people had the yellow Star of David. As well as communists, socialists, and trade unionists, because German communists were also against the fascist regime. So when people talk about, oh my God, the Nazis were socialists, no, they weren't. In fact, they actually went after the communists and socialists and trade unionists first. Just for a little bit of context for everybody. So yes, if the people who have suffered from the Holocaust are being treated terribly in your country, and you claim to be a country that is safe for Jewish people, you're lying, because you don't care about Jewish people. You don't care about Jewish people for real. You know which country actually does care about them? Iran. Because Iran actually has the largest population of Jewish people outside of Israel. Yes. Yes. There are synagogues in Iran. But a lot of people don't know about that. You see here. Hemcar says can't. What? Why won't let me show it? What? I don't know what's going on. Won't let me something messed up. Won't let me show. What's going on with StreamYard? I don't want to leave out and refresh. Hang on. That was weird. Okay. Okay, it's showing again. Okay. Crazy Cat said China already been dumping all U.S. assets. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Bryce. She was cooking. She was cooking. I'm telling you. Roger Meta says the Avani has a generator powering the battery, charge not needed. Are you talking about from Derek Automotive out in Atlanta? Yeah, I think it's Derek Automotive out of Atlanta. Netflix Origin says, honestly, the helium news is the biggest from Iran, depending on how much helium supply they contribute to the world supply. Yeah, that's also contribute. The helium also contributes to the operation of MRIs. But, you know, that's a whole nother thing, right? Ellen is showing some love. Thank you very much to Ellen. Of course. Netflix forward says, no, Iran under Mossadegh was the democracy. Yeah, and it's the democracy now. But when they had the Shah, it became a monarchy until the Iranian Revolution. And so now they're a democracy again. And I'm sorry, but yeah, it is a democracy now. They literally have a president. They literally have a legislator as well. Let me see. All one same says, and the cooperatives run by miners and farmers. Barry Ploppin says, I predicted that the variants would show up shortly after the jab deployed in every location, like clockworks. Within 2 weeks of each place, there were new strains showing up. Interesting. Okay. All right. Hempcar said, Farrakhan said the same thing about targeting Black people. I know a number of white people who, oh, you guys are talking about the pandemic. So I am over my time, but I want to thank you guys for tuning in. This was a informational show that I wanted to get into, but yes, I also have some good news. I don't want to share it just yet, but I will let you guys know probably by next Tuesday. I'll let you guys know. But it's some positive news that I like to share with you guys. No, I'm not pregnant. I'm just fat. But yeah, so I'll be sharing that. And as far as guests for next week, it'll be just me with news stories at the moment. And also, I'm going to give a shout out to Jamarl Thomas. I know he was going through a lot of health issues a couple months back. And I I just want to give a shout out to Jamal Thomas because, hey, I know what it's like, and I am glad to see you back and doing the best, work that you can. You're doing great work talking about geopolitics, especially on the ground. I would love to have a conversation with you on my channel one day. I think you're brilliant, and you try to make the news as digestible for those of us who are laymen as possible. And I just want to give a shout out to you. If anybody, can get in contact with Jamal, show him this. But, as somebody that has been dealing with a chronic illness, I know what it's like to be in and out of the hospital. I know what it's like to have to deal with the contradictions and inequities of the system. And you are not alone. And we are constantly by your side in this fight. Those of us here still in the imperial court that are living on this stolen land are also trying to do the best that we can in order to change the system. Easier said than done, but it can be done. And I'm just glad that you're better, and I'm glad that you're still with us, and I'm glad you're still educating the masses and providing value to all of them, because you know what? We need voices like yours, especially in this space. So my thoughts are with you, Jamal, and I hope to be able to sit down and have a wonderful chat with you one day and glean a lot of your thoughts, especially about what's going on in the world. So shout out to you, man. All right, everybody. I'm going to be heading on out. Thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. Please make sure to give a like to the stream on your way out. And also, if you guys see any clips, and if you guys find value in what I talk to you guys about in the clips, you guys can not only like, but you also can hype the streams as well. This also pushes me out more into the algorithm so that I can get the word out to more people and help inform, encourage, and inspire. So with that being said, we're going to end this stream. Now, what do I always say at the end of my stream? Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them, but if you ain't got them, watch something funny, because joy is revolutionary. Read, because reading is fundamental. I love you for being just who you are. You guys take care of each other as well as yourselves, because the world, the system is unkind. Start with kindness in your home and within yourselves, and spread it outwardly. Take care, everybody. Mwah. Forehead kisses. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good night. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here.